I never thought it would come to this. Not after all these years of raising her, all those sleepless nights, the sacrifices. Eva, my daughter, the one I held close, the one I thought I could count on, she didn't want me at her wedding. I stared at the letter, my hands trembling. My eyes scanned the words over and over again, as if reading them another time would change their meaning. But it didn't. The words were sharp, each one slicing through me, and all I could think was, why? Dear Father, I'm sorry to say that you are not welcome at my wedding. I hope you can respect my decision. What the hell? How could she say that to me? I raised her. She was the light of my life. Every decision I made, every sacrifice, I did for her. But this wasn't what I expected. I dropped the letter on the table, my breath catching in my chest. My mind was reeling, but I couldn't focus. My hands felt cold, almost numb. I stared at the words again, wishing they would disappear, wishing this nightmare wasn't real. How could she do this? I whispered to myself. How could my own daughter do this to me? I felt something burn deep in my chest. Anger, confusion, and something darker, betrayal. Dad. It was her voice, the voice I'd always loved, now tainted with a coldness I couldn't understand. I hadn't even heard her walk in. I didn't turn to look at her. I couldn't. Not now. Did you? I started, but the words caught in my throat. I had to swallow the lump that had formed there. Did you really write this? I picked up the letter and held it up, as if she could explain it away. Her eyes flicked down to the paper, then back at me, and there it was, that look. The one that said everything and nothing at once. Cold. Distant. I did, she said, her voice flat, as if this was something simple, something easy to do. I couldn't breathe. Why? The word escaped my lips before I could stop it. Why? After everything I did for you, after everything I've done for this family, you're telling me I'm not welcome. I could hear my voice cracking, and I hated it. Eva took a step back. Dad, I don't think you understand. This wedding, my life, it's not about you anymore. You've had your time. I couldn't hear the rest of her words. The room was spinning, and all I could think was, what had I done to deserve this? I wanted to scream, but instead, I just stood there, frozen. Frozen in disbelief. You know what? I muttered, my voice sharp, fine. Fine. If you don't want me there, then I won't be. But don't think you'll get away without me having a say in this. I turned, trying to hold on to some dignity, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear her footsteps behind me, but I didn't look back. Not now. I couldn't. If I looked back, I might break. I turned the corner, storming into the living room, and I almost bumped into my lawyer, John, who was sitting there, patiently waiting. Robert, he said, standing up as I rushed past him, barely acknowledging him. But then I stopped. I had an idea. A cold, vindictive idea, but the kind of idea that would let me take back some control. I turned to him, my hands clenching at my sides. John, I said, forcing the words through gritted teeth. I need you to write something. A letter. A formal one. John's eyebrows furrowed. A letter? Yeah. I'm going to make sure she knows exactly what she's lost, I said, barely recognizing the words coming out of my mouth. But they felt right. They felt like the only way to fight back against the weight of this betrayal. John nodded slowly, and for a moment, I felt the tiniest glimmer of relief. At least I wasn't alone in this. I paced around the room, the letter still in my hand. I tried to wrap my mind around it, but the more I thought about it, the more anger and hurt bubbled up inside me. My daughter. My flesh and blood. How could she throw me away like this? I could hear my breath quicken as I reached for my phone, dialing her number. I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her own mouth. Dad. Eva's voice came through the phone, distant and cold, like she was miles away from me, even though she was in the next room. Don't dad me. I snapped. Why are you doing this? What the hell is going on? What have I done? Tell me. Silence. I waited for something, anything, but there was nothing. Just a soft sigh, like she was trying to find the words to explain why she was breaking me. Maybe you should just accept it, she said, her voice almost bored now. This is how it has to be. I didn't respond. Instead, I hung up, and in that moment, something inside of me broke. I couldn't explain it, but it was like a shift. A final realization that maybe I wasn't going to get the answers I needed. Maybe I'd never get them. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. This story is far from over, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. My hands were still shaking, but I was done asking. Done pleading. If Eva wanted nothing to do with me, fine. But I wasn't going to be the one left standing here, a broken man. Not anymore. I had to find a way to make her see the consequences of her actions. If she thought I was going to sit idly by while she tore our family apart, she was wrong. And if I had to go to the extreme to show her that, I would. I could already feel the weight of the next few days pressing down on me, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And as for Eva, she hadn't seen the last of me yet. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thick and suffocating, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. My daughter, Eva, had ripped the last thread of connection between us. She didn't want me at her wedding, and the worst part? I couldn't even figure out why. I grabbed my coat and stormed out of the house, heading straight for Catherine's place. I needed answers. I had to know what went wrong. I knocked at the door, my hands shaking, and waited, barely able to control myself. The sound of footsteps echoed from the other side, and the door creaked open. Catherine stood there, looking as cold and distant as ever. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone sharp. I didn't waste any time. "What the hell is going on, Catherine? Eva sent me a letter saying I'm not welcome at her wedding." I thrust the paper into her hands. "You tell me why she's doing this." Catherine glanced at the letter, her eyes flicking over the words, but there was no sign of shock or remorse on her face. She folded the paper slowly, as if it meant nothing. "I don't know, Robert. Maybe it's for the best. She's grown up." Grown up. The words burned in my throat. She's my daughter. She doesn't just throw me away like that. My fists clenched at my sides, but I tried to keep my voice steady, even though the hurt was like fire in my veins. "You know something. I know you do. This is more than just a wedding. This is about something else. You've been behind this, haven't you?" Catherine raised an eyebrow, and the faintest smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. "What are you accusing me of now, Robert?" I couldn't hold back anymore. "You poisoned her against me, didn't you? All those years you made sure she knew I wasn't enough. That I wasn't a good father. Is that why she doesn't want me around? Is that why you always pushed me out?" Catherine stepped back, and for a moment, her expression softened. But only for a moment. "Robert, don't make this into something it isn't. Eva's old enough to make her own decisions. If she's decided you're not part of her life anymore, maybe you should just accept it." "Accept it? You want me to accept this?" I took a step forward, my voice rising. "Do you have any idea what it feels like to be rejected by your own flesh and blood? After everything I've done for her? After everything we've been through?" Catherine's eyes narrowed, and her arms crossed over her chest. "You weren't perfect, Robert. No one is. She's grown. She's moved on. You can't keep holding on to the past." My mind was racing, and it was like my own anger was working against me. I couldn't make sense of her coldness. How could she just stand there and act like everything was fine? I gave everything for her. I muttered under my breath, more to myself than to her. She was my life, my reason for doing anything. And now, I'm nothing to her. There was a long pause before Catherine spoke again, her voice quieter now. "Robert, you always were her hero, but heroes don't always stay on the pedestal. Eventually, the people they love have to live without them." I was almost shaking. The words felt like a slap. "So, what? You're just going to sit there and let this happen? She didn't respond right away. The silence stretched between us, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. I could feel my frustration building, but it wasn't just anger anymore, it was pain. What am I supposed to do now, Catherine? I asked, almost pleading, though I hated myself for it. How do I fix this? I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was giving her everything she needed. Maybe she doesn't need you the way you think she does. Catherine's words hit me like ice. Maybe you should step back and let her figure things out for herself. Step back? That's what you've always wanted, isn't it? For me to just fade into the background while you controlled everything. While you raised her the way you wanted, not the way we should have. My voice shook with frustration. Don't you see? She's angry at me, Catherine. But I don't even know why. Catherine exhaled sharply. You're looking for someone to blame. Maybe it's time to stop blaming me. I took a step back, feeling dizzy. It was as if the ground had just shifted under me, and I was falling. You're telling me I have to just let her go? Just accept that she's cutting me out of her life? Yes, Catherine said simply. Maybe that's what you need to do. I stared at her, my chest tightening. And you're okay with that? You're okay with me losing my daughter, with her walking away from me, from everything we had? I'm not okay with it, Robert. But sometimes things happen, and we don't have control over them. Not anymore. She looked away, as if the conversation had already ended. My breath came harder, and my mind was swirling. This doesn't make sense. I've done everything for her, everything for us. And now this. Catherine's cold gaze locked onto mine, and her words were soft but final. People grow apart, Robert. Sometimes, you have to let go. The weight of her words crashed into me, and I felt the world spin, like the earth beneath me was slipping away. I had nothing left to say. I walked out of her apartment, the door closing behind me with a dull thud. I stood on the stoop for a moment, the cold air biting at my skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something deeper. I didn't know what it was yet, but I was going to find out. I leaned against the wall of my living room, the silence pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. Catherine's words echoed in my head, each one a cruel reminder of how far I'd fallen. People grow apart. The phrase played on a loop, like a record stuck in the same place, as if it could somehow explain what had happened to me, to my family, to Eva. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the memories flood in. Memories of better times. Memories that now felt like a cruel joke. The laughter in our house, Eva's first steps, her first words. I had lived for those moments. She had been my reason for everything. I thought back to the early days with Catherine, before things started to crumble. When we were happy, before everything turned so cold. I thought about how we'd talked about raising a family together, building a future. I'd been so naive, so sure that love would make everything work. And for a time, it did. But somewhere along the way, I lost her. I don't know when it happened, exactly. Maybe it was gradual. Maybe it was when Catherine became more distant, when her smile started to feel fake, like she was only going through the motions. Or maybe it was when Eva began to pull away, when her eyes didn't look at me the same way anymore. It's funny how things can slip past you. How you can live your life thinking everything's fine, when in reality, the cracks are already forming. I should have noticed. But no, I was too focused on providing, on doing everything I thought was right. I thought being a good father and husband would be enough. I poured myself a drink, the amber liquid sloshing into the glass, but I didn't drink it. Not yet. My hands were shaking. I set the glass down and started pacing. The more I thought about it, the more my mind raced. The more everything I'd ever done seemed pointless. And Eva. She was the one who'd ripped everything apart. But why? I couldn't wrap my head around it. My daughter, the person I had spent my entire life loving, the one I thought I'd protected, was now the one throwing me away. But why? There had to be more to it than just the wedding. Was it me? Had I failed her somehow? Was I not there when she needed me most? I raked a hand through my hair, frustration bubbling up in my chest. My heart felt heavy, like it was sinking deeper with every passing second. It wasn't just the wedding. This had been coming for years, and I was only now starting to realize it. I had missed the signs, the late-night arguments, the cold stares, the way Eva began to shut herself off from me. Maybe it had been there all along, but I'd been too blind to see it. I thought about all the moments I spent trying to make her happy, trying to buy her love with things, with attention, with my time. But love wasn't something you could buy. It wasn't something you could force. I had to have done something wrong. A memory came rushing back, Eva, standing at the door, eyes red from crying. I could see it so clearly now. She had told me about her problems at school, about her friends, about her mother and I. But I had brushed it off, thinking it was just another phase. Maybe I thought if I just kept providing, kept working, things would fix themselves. I was so wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something else. Something I wasn't ready to admit. There was someone else. Someone who had gotten inside Eva's head. Someone who had manipulated her. Who could it be? David? Her fiancé? The guy she'd brought around when she was barely out of high school. The one who I thought was a little too perfect, too polished? The way he'd looked at me, like I was an inconvenience, like he already had his place in Eva's life and didn't need me. Could he be the one pulling the strings? I had my suspicions, but I hadn't wanted to believe it. He was charming, yes, but something about him always felt off. Something about the way he always tried so hard to ingratiate himself with me. Maybe it was because he knew he could control Eva if he played his cards right. Maybe he knew that if he got in good with me, it would make everything easier for him. I stood up, my heart racing. I had to confront him. I had to know what was going on. But was it just him? No. There was someone else. Someone who had been there long before David ever entered the picture. Catherine. I thought about her again, about the way she had shut me out over the years, how every attempt to fix things between us had been met with cold indifference. Had she been poisoning Eva's mind all along? Had she been the one planting those seeds of doubt? The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. Had Catherine been manipulating me? Had she turned Eva against me over the years? I knew there were things about our marriage that I hadn't wanted to face. Things I'd buried deep, hoping they'd stay hidden. But now, with everything falling apart, those buried secrets were clawing their way to the surface. I never thought it would come to this. I walked to the window, staring out at the city below. The lights twinkled in the distance, but they seemed so far away now. My whole world had shifted, and I was left standing in the middle of it, lost and unsure of what to do next. What had I done wrong? The truth was, I didn't know. But I was going to find out. I wasn't going to let this go. Not yet. Not when I had been abandoned so easily. Not when my daughter had decided she could just throw me away like this. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. There was a game being played here. A game I hadn't understood until now. But I was ready to play it. For my own peace. For my daughter. And for whatever was left of my family. The decision was made. It had to be. I couldn't stand around, letting this betrayal eat me from the inside. Eva had crossed a line, and now it was time for me to do the same. I grabbed my phone and dialed John's number. The lawyer I'd known for years. A cold, pragmatic man who would help me do what I couldn't do alone. Robert. John answered, his voice a calm, clipped tone. John, I said, my voice tight, I need you to write something for me. Something official. A letter. There was a pause on the other end, and I could hear the uncertainty in John's voice when he responded. A letter? What for? I gripped the phone harder, feeling the surge of anger and hurt rise again. I'm disowning my daughter, John. I'm cutting her off. Everything. Emotionally, financially, everything. Another pause. Then, finally, all right. I'll draft something. You'll need to give me some details. I wasn't surprised by his willingness. John knew when to take my words seriously, and he knew this wasn't some emotional outburst. This was calculated. It was final. I'll send it to you in an hour, I said, and hung up without waiting for a response. The next hour felt like it stretched on forever. I sat in the dim light of my study, staring at the blank page before me. The words were swirling in my mind, but it was hard to make them come out right. How do you write a letter like this? A letter that severs ties with the one person you thought you'd protect for the rest of your life? I took a deep breath, picking up the pen and forcing myself to write. It had to be precise, clear, and final. Eva, it's with a heavy heart that I write you this letter. After much thought, I've come to a decision that I never thought I would have to make. I can no longer remain part of your life. Your actions have shown me that I am no longer needed, nor wanted, in your world. You have made it clear that my place in your life is over, and I am forced to accept it. Consider this my formal decision to sever all ties, emotionally, financially, and otherwise. I will not be involved in your life any longer. This is a decision I am making for my own peace and well-being, one that I must stick to. You will not hear from me again. Robert. I stared at the words, my hand shaking as I set the pen down. Was this what I really wanted? I couldn't tell. Part of me felt like I was finally taking control, but another part of me was questioning everything. Would this push Eva away for good? Would she ever understand? I ran a hand over my face, sighing deeply. The storm inside me was overwhelming. It wasn't just the anger. It was the frustration, the helplessness, the realization that maybe I had failed her, but I couldn't live in that guilt any longer. It was time to reclaim my life. But what if this was the final nail in the coffin? What if, in doing this, I was closing the door on a future that could still be saved? I picked up the pen again and scribbled one more line at the bottom of the page, before sealing it. No turning back now. John arrived at my house less than 30 minutes later. He was as composed as ever, a man who'd seen it all and didn't flinch at much. But when he looked at me, there was something in his eyes that betrayed his professionalism. He saw the turmoil in me, even if I didn't show it on the outside. You sure about this? John asked, his voice lower than usual. I looked at him, my hands still gripping the letter I'd just written. The words on the paper felt like they belonged to someone else now. A version of me I didn't recognize, a version that was angry and distant. Someone who was ready to close off everything for good. I have to be, I said, my voice breaking slightly, though I quickly masked it. She's gone, John. I don't know why or how, but she's made her choice. And so have I. John didn't say anything for a moment, but I could see the gears turning in his head. He knew what I was doing, knew it was final, but he was a lawyer, trained to look for the practical side of things. This could ignite something, you know that? He said finally, his gaze steady, as if testing me. Eva might fight back. This could get messy. Legal repercussions. Financial consequences. It could backfire. I know, I replied, my words cold, sharp. But it's already messy. It's been messy for years. And if this is the only way to finally make her understand the damage she's done, then so be it. I'll deal with the consequences. John nodded slowly, his face betraying a hint of empathy. All right. I'll make sure this is delivered, just as you requested. But don't think this will be easy for either of you. I've already made my peace with that, I said, my voice harder now, more resolved. Just get it done, John. He stood up, taking the letter from me. I'll handle it. As he turned to leave, I felt something cold settle inside me. Part of me wanted to beg him to stop, to tell me it wasn't too late, that there was a way out of this mess. But I couldn't. I knew, deep down, that there was no going back. Not after everything. I stood by the window, looking out at the darkened street, watching the lights flicker in the distance. The weight of the letter in my hand felt heavier now, like the final step in a journey I hadn't chosen, but one that had been thrust upon me. Eva was gone. The daughter I had fought for, the one I had protected and raised, was lost to me. And I couldn't change that. The ink on the paper had dried, and so had my resolve. But was it enough? I hadn't expected it to happen like this. In my mind, I had prepared for tears, for anger, maybe even for some desperate attempt to convince me that she still needed me. But that wasn't what came. No, instead, Eva's response hit me like a slap across the face. I was sitting in my study, staring at the letter I'd sent, feeling the weight of the decision still pressing against my chest. I barely had time to process the quiet stillness that had descended upon my life when my phone buzzed on the table in front of me. It was Eva's number. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the phone and answered. "Dad?" Eva's voice was tight, strained. "I got your letter." I didn't say anything. I just waited, every nerve in my body on edge. "You think this is the way to fix everything?" Her voice was shaking now, but not with emotion. With something colder, something harder. "You think you can just sever all ties with me? Like it's nothing? Like I mean nothing?" I opened my mouth to speak, but I couldn't find the words. What could I say to that? The silence dragged on between us until I finally muttered, "Eva, I don't know what else to do." There was a sharp laugh on the other end, bitter and mocking. "You don't know? You never did know, did you, Dad? All these years, you were so focused on your work, on your life, that you completely forgot about me. You left me behind. And now, you want to pretend that cutting me out is going to solve everything." The anger in her words hit me like a wave, and I could feel it choking me. "Eva, that's not fair. You know I did everything for you." No. She interrupted, her voice rising. "You didn't do it for me. You did it for yourself. You never cared about me. It was always about what you wanted, what you thought was best. You never asked me what I wanted." I could hear her breathing heavily now, and for the first time, I felt a pang of doubt. Had I really been that bad? "I didn't abandon you," I said, more to myself than to her. "I tried, Eva. I tried to give you everything." Another laugh, sharper this time. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, you were a stranger. You were an absentee father. Always so caught up in what you thought was best, never stopping to think about how I felt." I closed my eyes, my chest tightening as I listened to her words, but something else was creeping up inside me. Something dark, something unfamiliar. "Why don't you just say it, Eva?" I asked quietly. "Just say it. You've been waiting for this moment, haven't you? For me to finally fall out of your life, to make it easier for you to cut me out." For a moment, there was silence on the other end. Then, her voice, so cold, came through. Yes, I've been waiting for this. You never listened, Dad. You never understood. And now, I'm done." The words stung like venom, but something else had started to click. A cold realization was forming in my mind. This wasn't just about me and Eva. This was something else entirely. "You're not alone in this, are you?" I said suddenly, the question slipping out before I could stop it. "You've been talking to someone, haven't you?" There was a hesitation on the other end, just enough to tell me I was right. "What are you talking about?" "David," I said, a dark feeling crawling up my spine. "You've been listening to him, haven't you? You've been letting him turn you against me." There was a sharp intake of breath. "What the hell do you mean by that?" "I mean," I said, my voice low, "I've seen how he looks at me, how he treats me. I've seen the way he manipulates you. I've been blind, but I'm not anymore, Eva. This isn't just about me and you. This is about him, too." Eva was silent, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then, her voice came through, strained with something I couldn't place. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she said, her tone shaking now, more vulnerable than I'd heard it. "David isn't the problem. You are. You've always been the problem." I felt my throat tighten, a mix of anger and sorrow twisting inside me. "No, Eva. The problem is that you've let him pull the strings. You've let him turn you into someone I don't even recognize anymore." She was quiet for a long moment. And then, finally, she spoke, her voice quieter, but filled with venom. "Maybe that's because you never tried to recognize me, Dad. Maybe you never saw who I really was. Maybe I've been trying to get away from you for years, and now you're just too late to understand it. Too late. The word stung. I wanted to argue, to fight, but something inside me told me it was pointless. She wasn't listening anymore. She hadn't been for a long time. Eva, I said, my voice breaking, I never meant to hurt you. I loved you. I still love you. I don't need your love, she spat. Not now. Not after everything you've done. And just like that, the line went dead. I stood there for a moment, staring at the phone in my hand, unable to process what had just happened. The storm inside me raged, but a different feeling had taken root, a feeling I couldn't shake. It wasn't just me she was angry with. It was everything. It was the years, the manipulation, and yes, David's influence, pulling the strings. I sank down into the chair in my study, my mind racing. This wasn't just a simple family issue anymore. This wasn't just about a father and his daughter. This was something bigger, something darker. But there was one thing I knew for sure now. I wasn't the villain in this story. Eva had been played. And I was just another pawn in a game I didn't understand. And that realization, that painful, bitter truth, was almost more than I could bear. It had been a few days since the phone call with Eva, and I hadn't heard from her since. I wasn't sure what I expected, but the silence felt heavier than any confrontation we'd had. Then, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, and my heart sank. David, Eva's fiancé, the one I'd been suspicious of from the start. I hesitated, but then I answered. What do you want? I said, my voice hard and steady. There was a brief silence on the other end before David's voice came through, sharp and confrontational. You've ruined everything, Robert. I closed my eyes, already feeling the frustration bubbling. I'm sorry, David. I didn't realize I was supposed to ask for your permission to be a father. You think this is about you being a father? David's voice rose, but I could hear the cracks in it. Eva is devastated. You've pushed her to the point where she's questioning everything. Her entire life is falling apart because of your letter. I sat back in my chair, running a hand through my hair. Devastated? That was rich coming from him. Eva wasn't devastated. She was angry. And rightfully so, I guess. But she wasn't the victim here. Not anymore. David, I said, my voice colder now, you don't get to play the victim. You think you can manipulate my daughter and I won't notice. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I could feel the shift in the conversation. What are you talking about? I leaned forward, the realization finally starting to settle inside me like a cold, heavy stone. It wasn't just Eva I had to worry about. David had been in the background, pulling the strings. I'm talking about the way you've controlled her. David, I said, my voice steady now. The way you've turned her against me, made her believe that cutting me off was the right choice. It's been you all along, hasn't it? David laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of confidence. It was nervous, strained. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pushed, pressing forward. Eva never would have done this on her own. She's been manipulated. I've seen it. And now she's too far gone to see it. You've been in her ear, telling her that I don't matter, that I've been a terrible father. You've been poisoning her against me for months, haven't you? David didn't respond right away, and in that silence, I knew I had struck a nerve. He was trying to compose himself, trying to figure out how to control the situation. But I wasn't going to let him. Not anymore. David started, his voice now hesitant. You don't understand. No, I interrupted. I understand perfectly. You've worked your way into her life, slowly, insidiously, convincing her that I wasn't worth her time, that I didn't deserve a place in her world. And now, you've got her exactly where you want her, cut off from her past, from the only person who's ever really cared about her. There was a long pause on the other end. David was scrambling now, trying to salvage the conversation, but I could hear the cracks in his facade. His confidence was starting to waver. You're wrong, he said, but the words lacked conviction. Eva's made her choice. And I've always been there for her when you couldn't be. Yeah, right? I muttered under my breath. You've been there for her. All right? Feeding her lies, making sure she'd never come back to me. David's voice shook as he spoke. She's my fiancée now, Robert. You need to accept that. I'm the one who's going to be there for her. Not you. I smiled, but it wasn't a smile of satisfaction. It was the smile of someone who'd finally seen through the veil. You really think you're the one who gets to decide that, David? That you get to tell me when I'm out of my daughter's life? You've got another thing coming. There was a long silence, and I could feel David's composure slipping even further. You're wrong, he muttered again. But it was weaker this time. I wasn't listening anymore. I was piecing everything together in my mind, seeing the situation from a new angle. Eva's anger, her decision to sever ties, it wasn't just a sudden outburst. It was planned. David had played the long game, manipulating her, using her pain to his advantage. And I had been the fool, too blind to see it. But not anymore. I think you'd better watch yourself, David, I said, my voice low, more dangerous than I had intended. I've given Eva everything I had, and now she's turned on me. But you? You're the one who's been feeding her the poison. You're the one who's going to lose. There was a long, tense pause on the other end of the line before David's voice came through, cold and defeated. You don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't so sure of that anymore. My emotions had been all over the place these past few days, but I could feel something shifting. I wasn't the weak, heartbroken father anymore. I was starting to see the truth, and with it, the power to take control of the situation. Maybe I do, I said, leaning back in my chair, my hands clenched around the phone. Maybe I'm the only one who does. I hung up before David could respond, the line going dead with a satisfying click. I sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle. For the first time in what felt like ages, I was calm. I had a plan. And it wasn't about trying to fix everything with Eva anymore. It was about taking back my life, about regaining control. Eva had lost control. She had let David pull her away, push me out of her life. But me? I was just beginning to see the game for what it really was. And now, it was my turn to play. The phone rang again, pulling me out of the numbness that had settled over me. I wasn't surprised when I saw her name on the screen. Eva. I had been expecting it. I had known, deep down, that this moment would come. The moment she realized that she had pushed me too far. I hesitated, letting the phone ring for a few seconds before answering. Dad, her voice came through, tentative, almost weak. It wasn't the usual confident, biting tone she'd used before. This was different. I need to talk to you. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers tapping against the edge of the desk. I didn't feel the anger anymore. I didn't feel the desperate ache that had consumed me when I first read her letter. It was gone now, replaced by something colder, something I wasn't used to, indifference. You've got 5 minutes, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, like she was trying to gather her thoughts. It was too late for apologies, I thought, but she didn't know that yet. I know I've hurt you, Eva finally said, her voice trembling slightly. And I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have said what I said. I shouldn't have pushed you away. Her words tumbled out in a rush, and I could hear the regret in her voice, but it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I leaned forward, my fingers tightening around the phone. Was I supposed to be relieved? Was I supposed to feel something other than this cold emptiness? Eva, I said quietly, you've made your choice. You've made it crystal clear. But now you're asking for forgiveness? Do you really think it's that simple? There was another silence, this one heavier than before. Eva's voice broke through, softer now. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I know I've done so much to hurt you, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I was wrong. I should have never pushed you out of my life. I could feel the weight of her words pressing down on me, but I didn't feel the relief that I expected. Instead, I felt a sharp sense of clarity, like the veil had been lifted from my eyes. I know what's been going on, Eva, I said, my voice steady now, no longer holding back. I know how you've been manipulated. How you've let David play you like a pawn. Her silence was immediate. I could hear her breathing quickly, but there was nothing else. No defense, no denial. Just silence. You think I don't see it? You think I didn't notice how you let him twist your mind? How he turned you against me? I continued, my words growing colder. I've seen it all. You've been playing games, Eva, and now that they're catching up with you, you want me to fix everything? You want me to just let you back into my life like nothing happened? No, she whispered, her voice cracking. I don't expect you to forgive me just like that. I want you to know that I regret it. I regret everything. I was scared, and I let him control me. I let him get in my head. But I was wrong. I see that now. I see you now. I sat back, a hollow laugh escaping my lips. Now she sees me? After everything? After years of distance, manipulation, and lies, she finally realized what she had lost. It was too little, too late. Eva, I'm not the man you're trying to make me out to be anymore, I said, my voice harder than before. I don't need your apologies. I don't need your regret. What I need is for you to understand that you've lost me. For good. I could hear her struggling to find the words, her breath ragged. I don't want to lose you, Dad. Please. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm trying. I swear, I am. Trying? That was all she had to offer? After everything? I had spent so long trying to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, she would come around. But now I could see it so clearly. This wasn't about me. This was about her and the choices she had made. You've made your bed, Eva, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. You've pushed me away for far too long, and now you want to come back? No. I'm done. I've done all I can. I'm not going to keep putting myself in a position where I'm the one getting hurt. But you're my father, she pleaded, the raw emotion in her voice cutting through the silence. I need you. I've always needed you. I shook my head, feeling the finality of the moment settling in my chest. Not anymore, Eva. Not after everything you've done. You've chosen your path. I have to choose mine. There was a long pause. And then, finally, she spoke again, her voice quieter this time, filled with a deep sadness that I had never heard from her before. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. The words were almost inaudible, but they stung all the same. It should have been enough. It should have fixed everything. But it didn't. I know you are, I said softly, my voice thick with something I couldn't quite place. Regret? Maybe. But also something deeper, something that felt like relief. But it's too late for that. You made your choices. And now, we both have to live with them. I hung up the phone without another word, my hand trembling slightly as I set it back down. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the screen, letting the weight of it all sink in. This was it. The end. Not just of my relationship with Eva, but of the man I had been. I had finally let go. I had stopped chasing a reconciliation that would never come. I had stopped hoping for a love that was never returned. I was done. Just as I was about to turn away, the phone buzzed again. But it wasn't Eva. It was a text message from an unknown number. I know what you did. You can't hide forever. My stomach dropped. The phone call came at exactly the wrong moment, or maybe the right one. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I knew immediately who it was. Eva. I didn't even need to check the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. Eva. Dad, she said, her voice barely a whisper, broken and fragile. I need to see you. Please, I need to talk. I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I wasn't moved by it. Not anymore. You've said everything you needed to say already, Eva, I replied, my tone flat. You've made your choices. I know, but I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, a faint sob breaking through. Please, Please just give me a chance to explain. I paused, letting the silence stretch between us. I had given her chances. I had bent over backward, sacrificing my dignity for the sake of a relationship I thought I could salvage. But that was before. That was before I'd finally seen through the lies, the manipulation. I exhaled slowly. There's nothing left to explain, Eva. I've done all the explaining I need to do. You're the one who needs to face the truth. I am facing the truth, she said, almost pleading now. I'm sorry, Dad. I was wrong. I was selfish. And I was so angry. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I just shut you out. I closed my eyes. There it was. Her apology, wrapped in the same words I'd heard 1,000 times before. But this time, it was different. She was broken. She was finally beginning to see the destruction she'd caused. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to rush in and fix it. I know you were angry, I said, my voice steady. But that doesn't change what you did. You tore everything apart, Eva. You cut me out of your life without a second thought. And now you expect me to just let you back in because you're sorry. Her silence echoed through the phone line, but I could feel her fear seeping through. She was losing control, and she knew it. I thought back to everything I'd been through, every single betrayal, every moment of doubt. The years of trying to win back a relationship that was never really there. And now, standing here, I understood. The truth wasn't just about her. It was about me, too. I had let myself be a doormat for too long. I don't need your apology, Eva, I said, my voice growing stronger. Because I've already let go. I'm done holding on to a past that you're not even interested in. I am interested. I swear I am. Please, Dad, I need you. I can't lose you. I can't lose you. The words echoed in my mind, and for the first time, I wasn't tempted to rush in and save her. I wasn't the one who needed saving anymore. It was her who needed to face the consequences of her actions. And I wasn't going to be the one to fix it. Not anymore. Eva, I said, my voice steady and final. You have lost me. You lost me the moment you let someone else tear us apart. You lost me the moment you made your choices, thinking they wouldn't have consequences. You don't get to have it both ways. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing heavily, and I could almost picture her standing there, tears streaming down her face, unable to comprehend the reality of it all. But I wasn't the one who would pull her back from this. I wasn't the one who would catch her if she fell. She had already made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I've done everything I can, I continued. I've given you every chance to see what was right in front of you. But this is where it ends. The silence that followed was deafening. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was free. I never wanted it to be this way. Dad, she said quietly, her voice breaking. I know, I replied, but I felt nothing. Not pity, not sorrow. Only clarity. But it is. And now you have to live with that. Please, just don't walk away, she pleaded, her voice a mere whisper now. I already have, I said, and I meant it. I had already walked away. I had already let go of the weight I'd been carrying for so long. And with that realization came the final piece of my transformation. I didn't need her forgiveness anymore. I didn't need her approval. I had finally found my peace, and nothing could take that away from me. I ended the call, my hand shaking as I set the phone down. But the shake wasn't from fear, wasn't from regret. It was from the sudden weightlessness that filled me. I had been tied to her for so long, fighting to keep her in my life, hoping that one day she would come back to me. But that day had never come, and I had learned to live without it. As I stood up, I walked over to the window and looked out over the city. The world was still turning, life still moving forward, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward too. I didn't need her. I didn't need anyone. I had reclaimed my life. And that was enough. Just as I turned away from the window, I noticed an envelope on the table that I hadn't seen before. It was from my lawyer. My heart skipped a beat as I picked it up and opened it. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, and on it, the words were clear: "We have been served with a lawsuit. Eva is claiming you abandoned her." The knot in my stomach tightened, but I didn't feel fear. I felt something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time: resolve. If she wanted to play this game, if she wanted to fight me, then she'd have to face the consequences. I wasn't running anymore. Let her come for me. I'm ready. It had been weeks since the confrontation with Eva. The lawsuit, the phone calls, the texts, they all came to nothing. I hadn't heard from her in days, and a part of me almost felt relieved. The storm that had been brewing for so long in my life had finally passed, and now there was only the silence. I stood in front of the window of my apartment, looking out at the city below. The world kept turning, just as it always had. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was falling behind. I felt like I was finally moving forward. The weight that had been hanging over me, the burden of trying to fix a broken relationship with my daughter, was gone. It was no longer my responsibility. For years, I had carried that burden, hoping that one day Eva would come around, that she would see the truth, that she would realize the damage she had caused. But the truth was, she was beyond my reach now. And for the first time, I was okay with that. I turned away from the window and walked to the small table in the corner of the room, where I had left the envelope from my lawyer. The lawsuit was still sitting there, unopened, as though it didn't matter anymore. She can have it, I thought. Let her fight her battles. I'm done. I could feel my mind beginning to settle, the anger and pain I'd carried for so long finally dissipating into something calm. The emotional wreckage from the past was no longer my concern. I had found peace in the wreckage, a sense of freedom I hadn't known I was capable of. And that was when I heard it, a soft ping from my phone. I glanced at the screen and saw an unread message from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I felt that old instinct to reach for it, to hope that maybe this was the moment Eva had come to her senses. But I stopped myself, and a smile tugged at my lips. Not anymore. I opened the message with a deep breath. The words were short, almost too simple: "I know what you did. It's not over yet." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. It wasn't Eva. The tone was colder, more threatening. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. This game's not over. Eva had set things in motion, but now, it wasn't just her who was playing. Now, I had the upper hand. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, contemplating my next move. The message unsettled me, but not in the way it once would have. Before, I would have panicked, would have been desperate to know what was coming next. Now, I felt calm, detached. If there was more to come, I would face it. But I would do it on my terms. For so long, I had been the one reacting, the one being manipulated, the one torn apart by lies and betrayal. But not anymore. I had shed that part of myself. I wasn't that man anymore. The door to the past had been slammed shut, and I wasn't going back. As I sat there, looking at the message, I realized something. It didn't matter what came next. It didn't matter who tried to manipulate me, or what kind of threats I faced. I had already won. Not because I had beaten Eva or anyone else, but because I had won myself back. Eva's life was unraveling. The consequences of her choices were already catching up with her. She had pushed everyone away, and now she was left holding the pieces. And I could see it clearly now. Her regret was hers to carry, and not mine. I didn't need to fix it. I didn't need to make it right. That was her burden, not mine. The last few months had been a storm, chaotic, painful, filled with loss and anger. But through it all, I had found something that I never thought I would again. Peace. And now that I had it, I wasn't letting it go. I set my phone down and walked to the door. I needed to get out. I needed to breathe the air outside, to remind myself that life was moving on. As I stepped out into the cool evening air, I felt the weight in my chest lift just a little more. Life had thrown its punches, but I had learned to stand tall in the face of it. And for the first time in a long time, I was at peace with it all. I walked down the street, My steps steady, my mind clear. Whatever came next, I was ready. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you loved? Do you think karma is real? Leave your thoughts in the comments, like, and subscribe for more stories filled with twists and turns. Don't miss out.